Welcome back, friends. Welcome to the new episode in Domain 1 Security and Risk Management. We will be covering here the remaining parts of investigation and ethics and what we'll be focusing on. We'll be focusing on process. Investigation process we have already discussed. We'll be focusing on evidence and we'll be discussing some key principles for people who are going to collect the forensic evidences, and then we will briefly discuss the investigation process in itself, like how the process looks like and what are the different computer crime categories, right? And we will make a separate video on the IOCE square code of conduct and which conduct violation can be reported by what type of people. So those kind of thing will be looking into a different video. So let's quickly go to the visual drawings. So if you look into my drawing page here, we have a nice brown bag of evidence. So what it says, let me just zoom it in a little bit. It says whenever we are doing some sort of investigation, whether it's a forensic investigation or any administrative investigation or collecting data for criminal investigation, we should always work on the copies of evidences, and we should not try to work on the original evidence, because there are chances that we can corrupt the original evidence, right? So this is one key principle which applies everywhere, that whenever we are doing some sort of investigation, some sort of file analysis or decryption or anything, we have to do it on a copy, not on the original evidence. Now, the people who are gonna do the gathering or finding of the digital evidence, they are actually gonna follow some principle, and there is an organization called International Organization on Computer Evidence. They have laid down these 6 principles, right? What are these principles? So these principles says that the first principle says that all the general forensic and procedural principle must be applied, right? So the general and forensic and procedural principle, for this will come from where? This will come from the basically the EDRM process which we have discussed in last video, right? So you can refer EDRM video if you haven't. Just go back and check my last video. So that process is very simple. It talks about some stages, and those stages has to be fulfilled before we bring any evidence to the court. Now, action taken should not change the evidence, which implies the first general principle we talk about, that whatever action we are taking should not change the evidence. So the first thing which we talked about, like the copying the evidence first and doing analysis on the copied data. So that is the base principle, and this principle is a bit different, that even on the copied data, if we are doing some analysis, the evidence should not change. Its hash value should not change, or its content should not change, or the timestamp of logs should not change. So those things has to be kept intact. Point number 3 says that only trained person should access original digital evidence. One quick thing to ascertain this point is to check the credentials of the people who are gonna handle the evidence. If they are certified by some certified body, or qualified enough, or authorized by some organization, so only those people should handle the digital evidence. All actions documented, seizure, access, storage, transfer, so all this is actually the chain of custody we discussed in last video, that whatever action we are taking, it everything has to be documented in a chain of custody log. Basically, the person the person possessing digital evidence holds all responsibility till possession. This is uh, this is also somewhere related with the chain of custody, that if the evidence is in custody of a person or any law enforcement officer, then till the time he is holding the evidence, he is actually responsible for the safeguard of the digital evidence. Any agency involved holds responsibility for compliance with the principles: seizure, access, storage, transfer. So this is also like if there is a vendor, or there is someone who is actually working on behalf of some organization, so they have to take care of the compliance of the digital evidence, right? So this is also an important point. So these 6 points are laid down by IOCE, and I don't think this is very much tested, gonna be asked in the actual exams questions, but we should have this in mind. It's all the common sense, basically. It's a common sense legalized in some format. So nothing very great here. Let's move to the media analysis. So when we talk about media analysis, we are talking about the storage devices, the hard disk or the storage cluster. So whenever we are doing any media analysis, the identification and extraction of information from a storage media should be done first. Then we have to use write blocker and calculate the hash of the media. And once we calculate the hash of the media, then we copy the media to another device or another storage box, and then we can calculate hash. And this both the hashes has to be documented somewhere, either in a separate document or in the chain of custody, which will show that the media where we are doing the analysis is exactly same replica of the original media. So this is very important. When we talk of the random access memory, like the in-memory analysis, so RAM is actually a memory which is volatile. If the power of a computer goes off, the memory will be wiped. So the best way to capture the data for a RAM is doing a memory dump or hash. Actually, I have seen a couple of questions wherein this is the question is asked in a way that if there is some instance of collecting digital data, what is the first thing you will be concerned with? So the very first data we will be concerned with will be the data which is in the volatile portion of the memory, and RAM is the very first obvious option, right? So we have to take care of the data in RAM first, and then we take care of the data in storage, right? So this is something we should know. Software analysis, right? So software analysis, we also do software analysis for forensics and investigation. What we do there, like we do software code review, we check backdoors, we check logic bombs, we check security vulnerabilities, log review, and hash value validations, right? So hash value validation, you might have seen that if you download any software from any company, like even the zip software, or any software you download, they provide the hash value, and you can check the hash checksum. I have done many upgrades on routers and switches and firewalls. So whenever I download an image from the website of the vendor, there is a hash there, and then we calculate the hash again, and if it matches, it means that it is okay. Software code review is basically this will be covered in the domain where we discuss software development life cycle, and actually the attacks which can happen on software. So there we will be studying a static review and dynamic review and fuzz testing. So here software code review is basically checking the software code for any inconsistency. If there is a backdoor means that the program is allowing an open connection to some hacker outside, which can actually enter into the program, not from the valid API or valid web interface, but from an IP and port which is not visible to end user. Logic bomb is actually a kind of virus which triggers at some time, and it's a time based um, program, and which disturbs the normal computing. Security vulnerabilities, we all know: log review, hash function validation. This is all contained in the software analysis. National Software Reference Library maintains hash value of over 130 million application. So a quick way of checking if the software is corrupted or not, we can refer to NSRL and check the hash of our software. If it is not matching, it means there is a problem in the software. It could be due to some virus or worm, most probably virus, because worms, the nature of worm is to exhaust the resourcing capability. Virus is something which will impact mostly in the functioning of the software, right? So NSRL is a quick tool basically to check the sanity of the software. It's like an X-ray, like you just do an X-ray to check where the bone is broken. So that's the hash value. Now, PC, smartphone, tablet, car, security system, and any IoT device or hardware embedded device, this analysis has to be done by the expert who know these objects. Because when we talk of hardware embedded device and IoT, uh, there are many variations of the devices, and every variation need a different skill set, a different type of technician who have the skills and experience to handle that kind of device. So here the important thing which we have to remember also from the exams perspective, that whenever we are dealing with hardware embedded device or any internet of thing of devices, we have to get the expert who knows those system. Actually, we need expert in every system, but these are complicated system which do not have a defined user interface and differs in how we can access the device and how we can do troubleshooting. That's why we need experts in this field. Now, if we quickly move to investigation process, this video is not gonna be too long. I think investigation process is basically how we complete the cycle of collecting evidence, right? So it starts with gathering and and reporting it. So after gathering the evidence, then the process of persecution and court and judgment and other legal things start. So first thing is what we do in investigation process is we gather evidence. How we can gather evidence? There could be a chance that the person who is holding the evidence, or like who is suspected, he or she can voluntarily surrender the evidence. This may be with good intention or bad intention, or the person who is submitting the evidence might have tampered the data or removed the log, but it happens that voluntarily people submit the evidence, right? So this is one kind of what are the motives, intention, and how we deal with the evidence which is surrendered voluntarily is not the subject of CISSP. It's a legal issue. We just have to know that there is a type of voluntary surrender, which is, I think, the most easiest way of getting the evidence. The second thing is that we can get a court order, or what we call like subpoena, which is actually a written document from a court saying that this person or this organization has to submit this document. So this basically compels individual organization to surrender evidence. If they don't, then the law enforcement agency like the police and the investigating branch, they can use force to get the evidence. Now there is something called Plainview Doctrine. Plainview Doctrine says that if a police has arrived in a home or a company or in a crime scene, and they say that there is some useful evidence, and it is there, and they think that if they don't take this evidence now, they can lose the evidence, or they can't wait for court order due to some reason, maybe the sensitivity of the issue or the situation at the place, then they can take the evidence with themselves, right? So we have seen these kind of situations in many movies, many TV serials and dramas. So this is called Plainview doctrine. Now, what is search warrant? So, like, search warrant is when we need access to evidence without tipping off the evidence owner. Um, if we know that there is a criminal, and if we are gonna tell them that we are gonna ask, we need some data from you, he can do something bad. So we just take a warrant and knock the door, right? So that's called search warrant. Now there are some Fourth Amendment clauses which is basically related with the privacy of individual. There are some privacy laws. So this is always a very tricky situation to use properly the search warrant, and when we can use, how we can use. The justification has to be very sound. um, in poor countries, third world countries, where police and administration holds too much power, and people are not aware of their freedom, their privacy. So those in those situations, search warrant is an easy thing. But in developed countries where people know their rights, people know their privacy limits and everything, we can't force a search warrant in those places. So we also should know that which place is prone to huge opposition, and which place is like there we can use search warrant easily, right? So these all things are again matter related with administration and legal. um, so we should just know from the CISSP exam perspective that the search warrant is actually when we want some evidence without tipping off the evidence owner, right? And it is a tug of war between Fourth Amendment privacy clauses and the need of getting the evidence, right? So it has to be tactically dealt with. Now, exigent circumstances may conduct warrantless search. There's maybe some situation where we don't have warrant, but we want some evidence, and we use the force. So that is called exigent circumstance. Yeah. So exigent circumstances and plain view doctrine seems confusing, because um, both of them look same, but exigent circumstances is a warrantless search, basically when we think that the evidence will be destroyed. So that's that's called exigent circumstance. But plain view doctrine is that someone is already there, doing the collection of evidence, and he sees something which is of importance of the case, and he can take that evidence with him. So that's plain view doctrine. I think that's the only thing it is in this gathering evidence section. Now, calling in law enforcement, basically whenever an organization wants to call law enforcement people, if there is a criminal incident or something um, related with finance or personal injury or something, we always should consult the senior management official, because senior managements are ultimately liable for any legal penalty or anything. So the consultation with senior management is very much required. Now, conducting the investigation is the third process. So first is like we gather the investigation, we call the law enforcement agencies. When we conduct the investigation, we always investigate on a backup system. We never attempt hackback and avenge a crime, and we always call expert when in doubt. So we have already discussed this point when we were discussing the type of evidence, right? So we use write blocker to so that whenever we are copying the data or making an image of a hard disk, The content is not changed. We always calculate the hash value pre and post. Whenever we are doing an investigation in our emotion, or like uh, just to hit back, we never try to avenge. We don't play avengers, or the game of taking revenge, those kind of thing. We never do it professionally. So we never attempt hackback and avenge a crime. We always call expert when in doubt, because it's a legal issue. There is no scope of saying that, okay, I was doing something but I didn't know this step, so I escaped it, and basically that destroyed the whole evidence. So in that case, even though the person or an organization, they were not actually the troublemaker, but if they destroy the evidence and they blame it to the not knowing the proper way, that's not a legal justification. So they will be again in a problem. So we always call expert when in doubt. Interviewing individual. So interviewing is to seek the information for investigation, and interrogation is if the information gathering is to be used in court. So if we are just doing some fact finding, some analysis, or some data gathering, and that is not to be used for any legal proceedings, so that's interview. But when we think that the information which I'm collecting from a person, and that information is going to be used in legal proceedings in court, that's interrogation. So there are different technique for interview and interrogation, and those has to be taken in care. The best thing to do at these stages is always to consult the legal team and see how this can be done, right? So this is very important. Now, data integrity and retention. What it means is that we have to maintain integrity to make legally eligible, like the any evidence which you are having should have the data integrity. So maintain integrity to make legally eligible. And one of the way to achieve this is, if we have a centralized logging system where we have the principle of least privilege applied, and we have a strict authentication mechanism to log in into the system, that kind of system will make the logs very strong, legally defensible evidence, basically. So yeah, that's about data integrity and retention. Reporting and documenting investigation. Like, it's good to have a single point of contact who will liaise with the law enforcement. If we if we if we interface the law enforcement with like 10 different people in 3 different departments, that's gonna make the case complicated, because there will always be conflicting statement, and those conflicting statement will be taken as an advantage by the other party, basically. So any organization should have a single point of contact who will talk to law enforcement people, and that person can in back end, he can consult the different teams who are there working with them. Now, what else is remaining here? There is something called network analysis. I think people who are from networking background like me, they know it very well. When it comes to network analysis, we are actually talking about IDS, IPS, network flow, packet capture, firewall logs, logs from other devices, and span ports. So these are all the network analysis technique which is used to collect evidences for digital forensics. Nowadays, some countries have this rule that any company who is processing useful user information which can be of concern to country or state, they should have a zone in the network which is called LI zone, law enforcement zone. So that law enforcement zone will have a box or a technical solution who will actually capture all the logs on a rotating basis, like for 3 months or 6 months. And those logs can be used or can be actually taken by the law enforcement agencies. So that's all in this video. I think what we have covered is different type of in different type of uh, media, how we deal with it, like when it comes to taking evidences, what are the steps for collecting evidence, what is the investigation process. And yes, there is something which I think we should cover in this video as well, which is different type of computer crime. I think these type of things we will discuss again, and it makes more sense when we finish the chapter on cryptography. uh, then we can give some practical example. But there is something called APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, which is military and intelligence attack, which happens mostly between two different countries or states. We have seen recently in the crisis of Ukraine and Russia, there is an advanced level of DOS attack, and APTs are observed. I think I can make another video on that story. But for CISSP, the term APT should always relate with a country, military, intelligence attack, right? Business attack is basically an example is ransomware, which is disrupts availability. Any attack like phishing, whaling, or things like that, who is targeting a business either to disrupt the business or to take advantage, ask money, or to gather some data which the attacker can sell somewhere. That's called business attack. Financial attack is attacking a company which directly hits the revenue of that company, right? Terrorist attacks are identified mostly when they actually target, most of the time they target the public infrastructure like railways, power plant, electric generators, and those kind of thing. So this is basically due to many reasons, due to some class of people, they think that they are not treated justly. So the way they actually do an attack is very public, like they don't go for very sophisticated business attack, or they set up some high quality computer. It's not like that. So this can be identified with the nature of attack. Grudge attack is basically this type of attack happens when a person is having a grudge with an organization. If someone is fired by a company, he may have some grudge, or he may have a grudge with some other employee, and he can use this feeling to basically attack or to leave some traces in the company and hack back. So those kind of things is called grudge attack. Thrill attacks are basically some teenagers who are a script kiddie, and they just wanted to see their creativity in action, right? So that's thrill attack. They will just copy and paste some code, try to inject those codes using some sophisticated programs, and there is no intention, like they are not after money, they are after any terrorism, or they don't have any grudge. They just want to see something interesting, and if something goes down, it's a talk of the town. They just boast about it. That's thrill attack. There are some hacktivists because of the growing nature of the geopolitical situation. There are groups who are actually interested in some activity which they call as activism, and most of the time they use denial of service attacks to target an organization or a company, majorly banks and government websites. So those are hacktivists. So that concludes my video here. I hope you enjoyed. This was a bit boring to me when I first studied this chapter, but with these diagrams, I think if you just keep those things in mind, the major things which I discussed, and that should be fine in answering the objective questions in the exam. And yes, if you like this video, put a thumbs up. You can subscribe the channel if you find the content useful, and share the video with your friends who are preparing for CISSP. That will help me, my channel. And if you are generous enough, you can donate to my channel. There is a PayPal button as well. Thanks again. Thanks for watching the video. Let's meet in the next video.